Okay, so, ready to dive into something new. We're looking at paranormal romance today
Ooh, yeah.
with SL Second Chances. Perfectly cited.
Yeah.
And we're really going to get into it. Dedication, prologue, first few chapters.
Yeah,
We'll even look at the author's website, get a sense of her background, all that.
I like that. It adds a whole other layer, knowing a bit about the author,
Yeah.
especially in this case, because, I mean, right away you see this contrast. She's thanking her editor, the cover designer,
Yeah, like Norm.
like any other book,
Mhm.
but then she's writing about angels and, what was it, Nephilim?
Yeah, and Reapers.
It's a wild mix. Definitely piques your curiosity.
For sure. And then to find out she's a mom from Texas, battling lupus, writing to leave a legacy, it just adds this whole other
Dimension,
Yeah.
right. Like how much of her own life is woven into these supernatural stories. It makes you wonder.
Totally. But okay, before we get too far ahead, we should talk about the world she's built in this book.
Oh yeah, Igloo City.
Igloo City, Alaska. Not your typical romance setting.
Not even close. And the
Mhm.
sheer number of different supernatural beings is a lot to handle. You've got your angels, obviously, but then fallen angels too. And
And you were saying earlier how impressed you were with how she actually lays out the rules for all of them. Like, it's not just random.
exactly, it's well thought out. Like that ice lounge she describes. It's neutral ground, right?
Mhm.
Even enemies can hang out there without, like, causing a scene.
That's so interesting. It's like one little detail, but it tells you so much about how this world works.
100%. Oh, and then there's that drink, the nightshade. I got to know more about that.
Right. Is that like a common thing in these books or something she made up?
We need to do some research.
Definitely. Okay, but enough about the world building for now. What about Anya?
Oh,
She's
she's something else.
our leading lady, running the supernatural hotel.
Exiled, though. Don't forget. Carrying that weight around.
That's true. But still, she's strong. I love that line when she's talking to the vampire. She's all, snack on any of my residents. I will personally stake you.
That's our Anya. Though you can tell there's a lot going on beneath the surface.
Oh, absolutely. Even just in the prologue, you get these hints about her past. Exiled for something she didn't do, those bracelets she has to wear.
And the child. Don't forget about the secret child.
Right. It's like every little bit you learn just raises more questions. Why was she exiled? What's the deal with the bracelets? Who's this kid?
It's like a puzzle the author's slowly putting together. And those bracelets, that's what really got me. Not only can she not talk about what happened, but they suppress her powers too.
Wait, really? I missed that part about her powers being connected to them.
Yep. So that tells us something about magic in this world, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's tied to truth or something, or maybe it's a way of controlling people, keeping them quiet.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, see, this is what I love about these deep dives. There's always something new to uncover. But we also can't forget the romance aspect. There's some serious tension between Anya and, what was his name, Dimitri?
The werewolf.
Alpha Werewolf.
Yeah.
And yeah, he is clearly smitten with her. But she is not having it.
She's got walls, that one.
And for good reason, right? I mean, she's carrying a lot of baggage.
That's true. And then there's Daniel,
We only get those little glimpses of him in the flashbacks.
but he's a presence,
Yeah,
even in those brief moments.
totally. So, what's your impression of him so far, just from those glimpses? He seems like a good guy, but you can tell there's this whole history there, all this unspoken stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And the way Anya talks about him, even after all these centuries,
Mhm.
you can tell it still matters to her.
Yeah, like those embers haven't died out or anything. And that whole thing with the angel radio.
Oh, I love that detail.
So cool. It's like blending technology and the supernatural. Do you see that a lot in these books?
I've seen it, but it's not super common. She does it well, though. It highlights their bond, right? This connection they have.
Exactly. But Anya's not the only one with a love life. We've also got Asher and Ebony.
Right. Their dynamic is totally different. Like, no one bats an eye at their relationship.
Yeah, it seems a lot more straightforward, at least compared to Anya and all her baggage.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's not to say they don't have their own issues. It's just different.
Definitely. Oh, but speaking of complicated, that cliffhanger at the end of chapter 1, when Daniel shows up at the diner.
Talk about a way to end a chapter.
Right, like suddenly everything's just different. Up until then, it's all flashbacks and backstory and bam.
She knows how to build suspense, that's for sure. And those flashbacks, they do a lot of heavy lifting. We learned about Anya's past, her relationship with Asher, how she became such a skilled fighter.
Right, all this stuff just layered in. And she even throws in that fairy tale, the one about the gnome.
The known who captured a star, yeah.
I always wonder about those. Like, is there some deeper meaning there, or is it just a story?
I think it's always both. On the surface, it's a sweet story. But the gnome sacrifices everything for the star, right?
Mhm.
And Anya, She's made sacrifices too.
Ooh, that's a good point. To protect the people she loves.
Exactly. So it's like foreshadowing in a way.
Okay, I can see that. But back to those cliffhangers. Because things don't really calm down after Daniel shows up. I mean, Gabriel.
Oh, things get intense when he enters the picture.
Right. It's like the mood of the whole book just shifts. Like before, it's kind of this personal, internal conflict for Anya.
And
But then,
that's a whole other level of danger.
exactly. And then she's forced to admit what she did to save Daniel
That broke my heart, to give up
Man.
so much for so long, and she couldn't even tell him why.
because of the bracelets, right?
Yep. It's more than just keeping her quiet. It's magic, enforcing that silence.
Wow. So she really had no choice, at least not until.
Not until she was willing to speak, consequences be damned.
And boy, does she ever. I mean, when she finally unloads on Gabriel, chills.
You can feel the rage, but also this sense of, like, righteousness, you know? She's not just mad, she's speaking truth to power.
Yeah, and calling him out on everything he's done. It's amazing she didn't, like, explode or something, holding all that in for so long.
And the way she describes what he did, how he manipulated them both, it's clear she's not just speaking for herself, she's speaking for everyone he's hurt.
It's a powerful scene, and then he starts to change. Right there in front of them.
Turns all, was it dark and demonic?
Uh-huh.
The imagery is great.
So creepy. Like, you could feel that transformation. But satisfying, too. Like, he finally becomes what he always was, you know?
Totally. And Uriel showing up to drag him off to hell. Perfect timing.
Right. Talk about adding insult to injury. But what about Alicia? I did not see that coming.
Oh, man. To think she was in on it the whole time.
And then she wants Daniel to help her. Please.
He sees right through her, though. Finally.
Yeah, no more Miss Innocent act. So with all that resolved, we finally get to the good part. Anya and Daniel reunited at last. How would you think of that whole part? It's sweet, but also kind of awkward. Like they've got so much to unpack, you know?
Definitely not your average just got back together scene.
Yeah.
There's centuries of baggage there.
Right. And poor Asher. He's just now meeting his dad for the first time, and it's a lot.
Understatement.
Yeah.
Though I do love how protective he is of Anya.
Yeah.
Like, this is his dad, but he's not afraid to step up.
It's that whole mama bear instinct, but with Anya instead.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much better when he walks her down the aisle.
Oh, yeah. I almost cried during that part.
So good. It's like he approves, you know?
Yeah.
He sees how happy Daniel makes her.
Exactly. And the Garden of Eden as a setting. Perfect.
Talk about symbolic. It's like a new beginning for them, wiping the slate clean.
Right. And those vows. So simple, but, ugh, my heart.
You can tell the author put a lot of thought into them, especially that part about, what was it, bone in my bone? It's from, like, the Bible, right?
Yeah, I think so. But it's not just a religious thing. It's about they're connected on this whole other level, you know?
Soulmates.
Yeah.
You don't see that kind of depth in every romance book. It makes you root for them even more after everything they've been through.
Totally. They earned their happy ending. Speaking of, Anya's line at the end about second chances.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Right. Not bad for second chances. Sums up the whole book.
Exactly. So if you're looking for a paranormal romance with a bit more to it, this is definitely one to check out.
100%. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got angels and demons. But it also makes you think, what does it really mean to be free? How far would you go for love? Stuff like that.
Big questions. And this is just one book, too. I was looking at her website earlier, and she's got a whole series planned.
Oh, really? I'll have to check those out.
Same. But for our listeners, think about this. What resonated most with you in this story? Was it the characters, the world, the themes? Let us know. We love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Happy reading, everyone.